What is up, everybody? I'm Dave LaFave, and you are watching Primetime Carolina. Today, the Carolina Panthers, along with the rest of the NFL, cut their roster down to 53 players. We're going to go through and look at the guys who were cut, and then we're going to go through and look at the 53-man roster, see if there were any surprises. What did we expect? What did we not expect? Before we get into it, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We just hit 500 subscribers, so that's awesome. You guys are awesome. If you haven't joined the channel, please go ahead and do so. With that being said, let's get into it. So we have Zane Gonzalez, obviously injured, going to IR, hurt his leg just warming up on the sideline. Terrible, terrible injury for the Panthers. We finally got a consistent kicker, and then of course he hurts himself doing nothing. That's the way it goes when you're a Panthers fan. Finally get something nice, and then it goes away immediately for absolutely no reason as well. So then we have Brandon Delistra. A bit of a surprise there. He's a guy who a lot of fans are really high on. Me personally, I could always take him or leave him. But I have heard some Panthers fans describe him as the best wide receiver on the team. I've heard him described as the Panthers version of Cooper Kupp. I've seen him described as the best hands on the team. All this stuff, I don't know where people get it from. I don't think I would describe Brandon Delistra anywhere near any of that, but whatever. Anyway, he's gone now. Like I said, I always thought he was okay. I could take him or leave him. Keith Kirkwood, not really surprised there. Pretty good, decent player. People like him. I like him all right, but he just wasn't good enough to make the cut. He's got some NFL experience, played with the Saints. He was also a Temple guy with Matt Rule back in the day. Then you have Justin Burris, safety, went to NC State. Former starter for the Panthers. Last year he was a starter at safety along with Jeremy Chin when the season started, but he recorded an interception against the Saints. Ultimately, some injuries got the best of him, and here we are now. I think the Panthers just decided to go with some younger guys, and he was a lot more expendable now that the team had brought in Xavier Woods at that other safety position. So not a huge surprise to see Justin Burris go. If you asked me before the season, or excuse me, before training camp, I would have guessed he would probably make the team, but ultimately that's not the case, and quite frankly, I'm not too worried about it. Next on the list is Julian Stanford. Good special teams player, good veteran guy. He's going to injured reserve. That's a shame. He's a good player. Spencer Brown got hurt in the preseason. That's a shame. I thought he was a guy who could push for a roster spot, definitely be on the practice squad, but obviously he got hurt, so that really stinks. In my opinion, he's a better running back than Chuba Hubbard, but we won't get into that too much. Derek Wright, CJ Saunders, Charleston Rambo. Three pretty good young receivers. Wright and Rambo are rookies. Saunders was in his second season. Three guys you could expect to probably see come back to on the practice squad. We'll see that'll come out here in the next couple of days. And then out of the rest of the guys on the list, you look at Colin Thompson. A bit of a surprise there. I would have probably picked him to be the third tight end on the roster. But the Panthers decided to go another route with that. We'll get into that here in a second when we look at the guys who are on the team. Deontay Brown, a bit of a surprise there. For me personally, not surprising because I always felt like he was kind of overrated. But another guy, similar to Zelistra, where I feel like Panthers fans really always really overhyped him. Me personally, I was never that impressed with what was going on with Deontay Brown. Obviously the Blastoise memes were funny, and the stats that he never allowed a sack in college were cool. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he just wasn't getting it done on the NFL level. But again, another guy who could be a practice squad candidate. Excuse me. Sam Tecklenburg, I guess, a little bit of a surprise, being that he actually got a start last year. Excuse me. He got a start last year, so a bit of a surprise that you see him get cut. He's a young player. I believe he's only going into his second season. And then Austin Larkin's a bit of a surprise. Not necessarily because he's a decent player by any means, but the Panthers are just so weak at that position. I thought they would have kept somebody. And ultimately, I do expect them to make some moves along the defensive line here in the next couple of days as they try to put their final touches on the roster with guys being released and whatnot. Trades can still be made. We'll see what they're going to do. Um, who else we got? Daryl Johnson. That's a guy the Panthers just traded for a year ago from the Bills. Can't remember what they sent over there. I think it was just a late round draft pick. I don't know if it's conditional or not, so I don't know if they're going to lose that draft pick. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But ultimately, again, he's not on the team anymore. Tay Hayes was a standout in the preseason. He had the pick six. Former Appalachian State Mountaineer. He had the pick six against the New England Patriots. He, good young corner. Made his plays, but at the end of the day, the Panthers are deep at corner, and they didn't need to keep any extra guys. So unfortunate for him. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked up somewhere else. If he doesn't, I'm sure he'll be a practice squad guy. Kalen Barnes, same thing. I would expect him to be a practice squad guy. Seventh round pick this year in 2022. Former Baylor Bear, of course, and ran a 4.2 something at the 40. So very, very fast, but just not polished enough to play that position in the NFL right now. So we'll see what happens with that. And then the last guy on the list, Kenny Robinson. Not surprised that he got cut. Potentially a practice squad guy. Personally, I like Kenny Robinson a lot. There are a couple other safeties who did make the team that I would have cut before I cut Kenny Robinson. But obviously, I'm not the one making decisions here. Kenny Robinson also might have got himself into some trouble. He got kicked out of 2 practices in a row against the New England Patriots. The 2 videos that went viral of the brawls between the 2 teams in the joint practices, Kenny Robinson was right in the middle of both of those and ended up getting booted out of both of those practices. So he didn't do himself any favors there, I'm sure. And after that happened, Matt Rule said, it could affect him making the team, and looks like it might have. So those are the guys who got cut. Like I said, not too many surprises there. A lot of what we expected. So let's look at some more of what we expected and look at who did make the 53-man roster. This article is on the Panthers website, written by Darren Gant. And it just goes position by position, breaks it down real easy for us. So we'll start with the quarterbacks, Baker, Sam, PJ. I mean, we all saw that coming. We knew who the 3 quarterbacks on the roster were. Running backs, McCaffrey, Foreman, and Hubbard. Again, no surprises there. Personally, I'm not huge on Chuba Hubbard, but other than that, I obviously love Christian McCaffrey. I think Dante Foreman's going to be a great addition for us, and I think he showed that a little bit in the preseason. Tight ends, this is where the first surprise came. Steven Sullivan's a guy that most people probably didn't see making this roster. Personally, I've always liked him, but I still didn't think he'd make the roster. He's a former LSU Tiger, and I think he's played offense and defense in his NFL career. Oh, let's read right here. It says, Sullivan is perhaps the surprise to many, but coaches love his combination of size and receiving ability. He had a fumble in the preseason, but that doesn't obscure to the larger body of work when they talk about developing players. He's the kind of guy they're referring to. Yeah, so big, huge dude, great athlete. Like I said, I think he has a history playing both offense and defense. And yeah, he's the type of guy you want to develop. So apparently they like his upside, and they're gonna keep him around, see what they can turn him into. He had a nice grab in the Bills preseason game on a play action pass. Baker Mayfield hit him along the sideline. He made a nice little grab, so it was good to see him contribute. Like I said, nice athlete, big strong guy. Wide receivers, a bit of a surprise at wide receiver, just because they kept 7 guys. That's not something you always see. A lot of times teams only keep 5 or 6. So for them to keep 7 shows how much they really like all 7 of these guys. Obviously, you got Moore, Anderson. Laviska Shenault, recently added to the team. Going to be a good gadget player. Hopefully they can use him in the backfield. Swing passes, reverses, option plays, things like that. Anywhere you can get him the ball in space where he can make some guys miss, break some tackles, go get your first down. That's where you want to use him. His hands are questionable for a wide receiver, so anytime you can eliminate some of those downfield passes to him and let him do what he does best, I think is when he'll make the most of his opportunities rather than being split out wide and having to beat corners at the top of his routes. All right, so then we move on to Terrace Marshall, who obviously has been a bit of a disappointment so far in his NFL career, but coaches and fans are all holding our breaths, hoping that he can take that next step and do something this season. We'll see what happens. Shi Smith, the star of training camp, could be an absolute steal. 6th-round pick last year. Very excited to see what he's going to do. Rashard Higgins, one of Baker's favorite targets in Cleveland, ends up here in Carolina with Baker. So obviously they have some chemistry. He's a good player, good downfield threat. Excited to see what he can do. And then Andre Roberts is a good return man. Now, out of the guys on this list, Andre Roberts is the one I would have probably been the most worried about with the addition of Chenault along with Shi Smith. Both of those guys can return kicks, and Andre Roberts is a return specialist. I wouldn't expect him to contribute a lot on offense. Expect him to really only return kicks and punts. So, like I said, once we brought in Chenault, you figure with him and Shi Smith, that's enough um, ability to return kicks between those two guys that you wouldn't need to keep Andre Roberts. You could cut him and keep someone somewhere else. So if the Panthers get the opportunity to bring in maybe another edge rusher, Andre Roberts could be on his way out for that reason. So keep an eye on that. So then we look at the offensive line. We have Ikem Ekwonu, Brady Christensen, Pat Elflein, Austin Corbett, Taylor Moton, Bradley Bozeman, Cameron Irving, Michael Jordan, Cade Mays. Nothing surprising here. You can see in this first sentence touches on the fact that the Panthers traded Dennis Daly for some draft picks. Awesome. They were obviously going to cut him anyway. So it's good that they were able to get something in return for him. They sent him to the Tennessee Titans. And I believe Cade Mays is a big reason for that. You know, 6th-round draft pick who's come in and shown that he can play all along the offensive line. He's got a lot of ability. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do here with his NFL career. With the Panthers, he's got so much versatility. He's very physical. He's got pretty good athletic ability, too, for a guy drafted in the 6th round. But he has good experience. He played at Tennessee and Georgia. And like I say, he can go all over the offensive line. So he's a good, versatile player. Excited to see him join this squad. Let's look at the defensive line. Brian Burns, Yetur Gross-Matos, Marquise Haynes, Amari Barno, Derek Brown, Matt Ioannidis, Bravion Roy, Davion Nixon, Phil Hoskins, Marquand McCall. The only surprise here is McCall, but he did such a great job in the preseason. The Panthers had to find a way to keep him on the team. So it's good to see that they did. The Panthers have a lot of good young talent at defensive tackle. I really like this group. I just want to see them bring in another edge rusher if they can. Because after Brian Burns and Yetur Gross-Matos, they're pretty weak. I like Marquise Haynes a lot as a rotational player, and same with Amari Barno. But ultimately, those two guys aren't quite good enough right now for what you're looking for when you get into the 3rd and 4th quarter and guys are getting tired and they need to come out and get a break. You need another quality defensive end that you can put in there and get some quality reps and get after the passer. So we'll see what they do if they bring in another pass rusher. So then that brings us to our linebackers: Shaq Thompson, Damian Wilson, Frankie Louvu, Corey Littleton, Brandon Smith. Nothing surprising there. Exactly what you expected from the linebacker group. Defensive backs: J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, C.J. Henderson, Keith Taylor, Stanley Thomas Oliver, Jeremy Chin, Xavier Woods, Miles Hartfield, Sam Franklin, and Sean Chandler. Again, nothing crazy surprising here. The only thing that's a little surprising is maybe Stanley Thomas Oliver. I heard a lot of people expecting him to get cut. Personally, I like him. I like him as a special teams player. I think he's a pretty good young corner, so I like that he made the team. I'm a fan of his. If I was the Panthers, the only thing I would have done different probably here is I would have probably cut Sean Chandler and kept Kenny Robinson. But, it's apples to apples. It just depends on how you look at it and who you prefer. But to each his own, I guess. And, specialists: Johnny Hecker, J.J. Jansen, Zane Gonzalez is hurt. So the Panthers still need to add a kicker. And obviously, there's going to be some changes made. So we'll see who is no longer on this roster after the Panthers bring in a kicker. Yeah, so that's it, man. With that being said, keep pounding. Thanks for watching.